Not surprisingly, there was a debate about the budget of the compliance team. And this discussion went on up to the point when our Italian affiliate got a downgrade from the Italian competition agency. And finally, because there was a huge downgrading and with many players, and they had to review, I don't know how many, 10,000 of files, the bill ended up around 300,000 euros. And then I just had to present the figure of the salaries and other costs, fixed costs. And the comparison was, quite clear. So my advice in that respect, do not hesitate to spend money on prevention. And in this case, prevention means that hire good lawyers, in-house lawyers, and get the money to them and allow them to make their jobs, because it really pays out at the end. Pays out in both sense, meaning that pays out if they find something, then they, as I mentioned, you can either run to the for leniency, but also pays out that if you compare the costs of involving an external legal team for a case. The point where you have to make a very important decision is the scope of the compliance team. We decided to go for a very, very narrow scope, meaning that compliance for MOL Group means only competition compliance. But as you know very well, in the banking sector and at many other companies, compliance is something broader. Let it be the compliance with insider trading, let it be compliance with money laundering, bribery. But for the time being, we decided just to stay at this kind of minimal level, which doesn't mean, however, that we are not going to spread or increase the scope of the compliance team. And also, the other decision which you have to make, whether or not you give the showstopper role to the compliance team. Usually in the financing industry, the compliance officers, and especially my experiences after the crisis, they have this very strong role. We more experienced that there was a high-level agreement on a financing structure, but then the compliance officer of a bank, of a huge Western European bank, didn't like the certain elements of the story. And even the number one of the company could not convince the compliance officer to let the deal go. And finally, the deal wasn't done. So this is the decision-making point which you have to focus on, that whether you give such a strong role, such a strong position to your compliance officer. As I mentioned to you earlier, the compliance program is partly based on a written material, which we also spread on the company's intranet. And everybody who works in certain positions must go through this exam every year, actually. So it's a repeating exercise. And those who work in the commercial area and also in strategic area, so who are in kind of daily contact with our competitors or potential competitors, must go through this exercise. The compliance team is really searching for the past. It's very important to emphasize that they are not focusing themselves for the future. This is the role of the competition team. The compliance team is searching for the past and searching for any evidences that might be relevant from compliance point of view. And this is how they continuously monitor the activity of certain sectors, certain areas within the company. I must tell you that we also introduced quite a harsh kind of copying of a downgrade, which means that they are entitled to go to downgrading their own colleagues, which means that they appear in somebody's premises, take away the computer, make a copy of the hardware, and then analyze it. Also then have questions to them. and they would like to understand that, for instance, in certain clauses or certain contracts, why the discount is X and why it is not Y, as it is prescribed for by the discount policy of the company. And so they just like imitate what normally the competition agencies would do. Also here I must mention, because we are lawyers, that you have to handle some data protection issues, of course, because even though it's not in the policy of the company, but everybody knows that you keep private information on your computer, even on your mobile phone, which is used for working purposes. Nevertheless, we know that there is private information available there. Also in some countries, for instance in Italy, there is quite a strict rule how someone else can get access to your computer, even if it's officially a company-owned computer. So all I want to say is that when you put together your compliance program, you always have to take into consideration the national specialties, and you always have to solve the compliance program on the national level too. So it's not enough simply to introduce a compliance program on the group level, but it's very important to implement it on national level. At the beginning, as I mentioned, we are in the focus of several competition agencies, and then finally, when we decided and make it sure, we want to prevent ourselves from any such bad experience for the future or in the future. Therefore, we require full cooperation from all the managers of the given areas. So this is why I told you at the very beginning that the company culture and the management support are both inevitable, and without them you cannot make or you cannot achieve any success, honestly. Well, I think I already told you the main storyline of this very unpleasant paraffin cartel case. Probably what is still interesting and relevant as a kind of general takeaway or message, that as I mentioned, even one man can cause a big harm to your company. And the real question is whether you can have policies and mechanisms in place which can really prevent such an occurring in a company where more than 35,000 people work, and out of which roughly 5,000 are exposed on a day-to-day basis to competition scrutiny. So it's quite a challenge, honestly, but I do hope that the compliance program in place is able and will solve this problem. Finally, let me just tell you a couple of words about the problems, because I thought that it might be relevant for those who are maybe just thinking of setting up such a team. I already mentioned you the problem of data protection, which at least in the European Union should be somehow uniform, but still in reality it's varying country to country. Also, there is one other issue which I would like to emphasize, and this is the problem of archiving. For tax and accountancy and also internal audit purposes, you would like your team to archive everything. Well, this is not necessarily the case from competition or compliance point of view. Because if you find something back in time and you think that the statutory limit is over, then you would like to have it immediately destroyed, for instance. And this causes certain conflicts in between, between the different departments. And I can tell you that it's not always easy to find the win-win situation, which is good for the internal audit purpose and the tax and accountancy purpose, and also acceptable from compliance point of view. And probably the third factor which I would like to mention is that we are also facing the problem And by the way, with my friend Zoli Barakonyi, we have been thinking of this for half a year now, that at least in the region, but I don't think it would be somehow different in other Western European countries, the interpretation and approach of the national authorities is completely different with respect to definition, for instance, of the market, how the definition of the dominance position should be interpreted. So it would be, I think, very nice to have a conference once upon a time in the future about why it's completely differently interpreted, let's say in Croatia than in Slovakia and then in Hungary and the Czech Republic. Because there is no such as unique definition of a dominant position. Maybe it's unique and everybody interprets in a way if you read the definition, but in practice I can tell you it's completely different how the different authorities interpret this. And this causes a problem for compliance team because we have to adapt ourselves to the local specialties when we are searching for potential, how should I say, mines or bombs that might blow up in the future. And the final one I wouldn't like to talk about this too much because I think everybody is aware of the problem of the legal privilege. I am here, of course, as a counsel of a company, so you can find out and you can easily guess. I didn't like the decision of the European Court, which didn't finally grant the legal privilege to the in-house counsels. And I wouldn't like to bother you with the details of this decision. Everybody can read it. But from a very practical point of view, and I think this is something which also both DG Comp and European courts should have analyzed, that it is actually the legal team in-house which has the trust, which has the knowledge, which know the people who are responsible for the daily operation of the company. And if they come to you with a problem, or even if it's the first sign of a potential cartel, and you are not granted the privilege, then you are in trouble, because then you have to involve inevitably an external law firm, which is not that convenient anymore, because your people tend to be not that honest, for instance, with an external lawyer. The external lawyers do not tend to have that much expertise of that given area and the company. So from a very practical point of view, I would go, of course, in favor of granting the legal privilege to the in-house counsels. So this is shortly my story, and I just would like to finish my presentation with a quote taken from Ian Wilson, because I think it's a perfect one. He said, "No amount of sophistication is going to allay the fact that all your knowledge is about the past and all your decisions are about the future." So I would encourage everybody that based on the past experiences of other companies, build a compliance team for the future. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we are going to continue with three esteemed colleagues of mine. When I read their CVs, the first thing which struck me that all of them are very fruitful authors of different articles and even books. So first, I would like to ask Carly to give us a short presentation on GE, and as I mentioned to you, GE is very strong in compliance. So I'm sure that you will find this very interesting as well.
Thank you, Pál. Yeah. Can you all hear me?